Hello, my name is Nolan Kramer, and along with Alexandra, Fiona, Kayla, and Summer, we will be presenting the idea of adding a farm into the Lunar Gateway project that is in development. So what exactly is a Lunar Gateway farm? Well, to answer this question, we have to split up the possibilities that this project offers. A Lunar Gateway farm could act as a place for research first and foremost. With the environment being different and more space-like than humans have ever experienced before, it could be a perfect setting for researching the difficulties of lunar farming. And why focus just on the moon? It could also be a place to look into farming on any off-Earth planet, as well as a place to look into efficient ways to farm off planets for long endeavors into space. Research is always needed on these matters, especially when colonization comes to mind. As any farm does, this Lunar Gateway farm would also be able to provide not only food, but other amenities, such as medicine, clothing, etc., depending on the choice of plants and how efficient the farm becomes. This farm, with it being in the middle of space without the shield of Earth to protect it, can also be a base for technological innovation. It will take the peak of technologies just to initially run this project, and once it is in place, new technologies will have to indefinitely be created to ever better and make more efficient this Lunar Gateway farm. The research component crosses into this development component as well, since new technologies can be tested in an environment that mankind has yet to have access to. Along with the benefits of this project, though, come plenty of hardships to overcome, which we will go into.
There are several necessities for a lunar farm, which include because plants can grow in regolith, which are the moon soil, as long as they are provided with five main things: air, water, light, and fertilizer. All of these have difficulties that come to different degrees. As shown on the left, the vertical oxidate reactor technology experiment Vortex helps with the fertilizer problem. Recycling waste and getting rid of it when it would otherwise accumulate, it really helps making things such as carbon dioxide, water, and ashes, which acts as fertilizer. Water is also needed, which is great as it comes from Vortex, and it's also found at the polar caps from both of them on the moon, as discovered a few years back. This can be used in the farm, such as for helping with aggregation, and it also can be used in power systems, though that's inefficient. One of the other things that keeps that's the difficulty is an oxygen system for air running in the farm. To counter this, as shown by studies by one Philip Sheshikov, carbon dioxide can be smashed into gold foil to yield oxygen. However, this doesn't yield a lot of oxygen. So what we'd have to do would be to up the rate of the speed of the reactor and to yield more and to get a lot more through. Plants too can help with this by growing a lot more plants that can turn carbon dioxide into oxygen. Finally, there's light, which can come from electric devices powered by solar panels, which will be covered in a later panel about how solar panels would work. And if protected properly from radiation, they could even get it directly from the sun, light energy.
One of the biggest components of any farm and its success is its soil. For the Lunar Gateway farm that we've proposed, I suggest first installing a food growth chamber like the veggie that is currently being housed on the International Space Station as a preliminary food source for researchers on Gateway. But once things are up and running and Gateway is in orbit, we should begin using lunar regolith to grow and provide food. NASA's Lunar Gateway was designed to be a stepping stone between Earth and extraterrestrial bodies like our moon to further research and develop the tools and methods we need to colonize space. The small scale at which growth chambers like veggie produce food will not be suffice for a true colony. We should be utilizing Gateway's proximity to the moon's surface to extract regolith and to further study it. As studies conducted here on Earth have shown, if we can transform lunar regolith from its characteristic void of nutrients and organic matter to a medium that supports life, we should be able to successfully grow and harvest edible foods. As is, regolith cannot support plant growth. But as was done with simulated lunar regolith, with the addition of nutrients, human feces, urine, and nitrogen-fixing bacteria, all of which are components of earthly soil, plants were able to grow from this generated lunar soil here on Earth. By using the proposed Gateway Farm to house this regolith research, we can provide not only an immediate food source for the astronauts on Gateway who are researching and living there, but it also provides the basis for a cost-effective way to grow food on the moon's surface. The means of generating soil from existing lunar material saves money, and more importantly, it creates a sustainable food source that will absolutely be necessary if we are to ever have a successful colony, either on the moon's surface or any other surface. To summarize, regolith from the moon's surface will be used as the growth medium for our farm and provide us the means of creating a more sustainable food source.
Electrical power is a large part of any kind of colony or community off of Earth, and this proposed Gateway Farm is no different. Power is needed to keep oxygen, water, and heat flowing throughout the crops. In this case, power will obviously come from the sun. There are two feasible ways to collect solar power, the first being through photovoltaic cells and areas of solar panels. In the 1970s, a Project Apollo researcher, Dr. David Criswell, found that all the resources necessary for creating photovoltaic cells were already present on the moon, in rocks and dust. This means that no solar cells would need to be made on Earth or transported into space, only the machinery to gather the needed materials. This would include excavators or ore miners, as well as ways to process this raw material. This would save money in the long run because cells could be produced at a lunar base instead of constantly being shot into space. With these cells, panels would be made to span areas as large as needed. The ideas of these panels come from the Japanese Shimizu Corporation. Shimizu wanted to build a ring of solar panels around the equator of the moon, as shown in the image in the top center, and produce terawatts of energy to send back to Earth. For just the farm, panels could be placed in smaller areas and easily be used to power everything while there was sun hitting the cells. Since there is no weather or atmosphere on the moon, the panels can be almost paper thin, making them easy to install and move if needed. The second way of collecting solar energy is through a centralized thermal mass. Lunar regolith can be mixed with materials like aluminum or other metals to be able to better store energy. Rays from the sun can be bounced off of mirrored surfaces into a concentrated area of this modified regolith and be used as thermal energy. This brings me to power at night. Because lunar night can last around 2 weeks and bring temperatures of about negative 150 degrees Celsius, it is extremely important that there is a way to maintain this power through the darkness. Otherwise, crops could be destroyed, water would be frozen, and quality of life could decrease significantly very quickly. Solar panels can do a lot for daytime energy, but it is hard to store this energy for longer periods of time unless you have solar panels constantly receiving the sunlight. That being said, using thermal energy from mirrored panels could be an efficient option for storing energy. Scientists at the European Space Agency have been working with regolith bricks, like the one shown in the top right corner, made of simulated regolith, to store thermal energy for long periods of time. Their mission is to see if these heat storage units could actually absorb and expel heat at the desired rate to produce electricity, and so far the results have been favorable. The energy stored in these bricks can be transmitted to temperature regulators, water pumps, air circulation, or anything else that needs to keep the farm up and running. These bricks have proved to be an inexpensive and convenient way to store energy without the need for outside materials. The bricks could be created using the same type of excavators and ore mining machinery mentioned previously, further decreasing the amount of stuff needing to be sent to the moon.
One of the main problems for building a moon farm is the lack of water. So there's only a few water sources that we can get water from. 2 of them are on the moon. There's the polar ice caps where water was recently discovered on the moon, which are both on the north and south, with more gatheration on the north. And what one of the plans is to farm ice from there in order to get more supplement of water. It might be a bit hard to farm ice, but that's what the plan is. Otherwise, there is always water and regolith to the soil of the moon, but that is also a bit hard to get just because of how scattered the water molecules are within the soil. There are ways that aren't naturally on the moon, though, that we can also get water. There is a machine in order to get from urine to water, and there's also, as mentioned earlier, a vortex machine, which, when reducing waste, will leave water behind. Either of these will help get water, and all of these are the ways that we'd be able to get water to the moon, because we can't afford for spaceships to bring water to a colony or even to wherever astronauts will land on the moon.
All right, we have covered the general concepts of this proposed colony, and now we'll be covering something more specific and talking about what types of plants could prove vital in space colonization. I will also be discussing why certain plants are possibly a better choice than some of the plants we are familiar with. Starting off, I want to cover the resources plants can provide to colonies. The first thing that comes to mind when we consider crops on off-planet colonies is usually food. Though this is the biggest resource they provide, plants can be very versatile and are used for clothing, medicine, building materials, and plenty more. These are the things to consider when we choose what to load into a spacecraft headed towards a new colony. If some materials can be substituted with a packet of seeds, doing so could leave space for items that can't be easily replaced. Starting with edible crops, we have a lot of options. Some edible plants that are suited to Martian soil are leafy greens, tomatoes, and various types of beans. These would all be great options to increase variety in the diet of future colonizers and serve as easy staples in the beginning as they grow fast and without much trouble. Spices also grow surprisingly well in harsher conditions. Plants like thyme, rosemary, and sage are drought resistant and would be easy to manage in a greenhouse, and would add some flavor to the reduced list of foods available at the colony. Next, we have the inedible crops. While researching, I found that one of the most promising plants for non-edible purposes is cotton. Cotton is a hardy, drought-resistant crop, something that could prove very useful in these harsher environments. Cotton can be used in clothing and paper, as well as other miscellaneous purposes. On other planets, trees are not a sustainable option for building materials. Considering their size and growth rate, trees wouldn't be able to provide a colony with building supplies efficiently until decades after the initial landing. A much better alternative is bamboo. Though these plants need moist soil, they are a very versatile crop that grow at an astonishing rate. They have uses from construction to clothing and even food. A plant this adaptable and fast-growing will prove vital to the first off-Earth colonies. Now let's talk about the trickier crops. There are some plants that may be extremely useful to colonies but might prove to be challenging to work with. Plants like potatoes, hemp, and sweet corn all require a lot of moisture and specific soil requirements, something we may not have the luxury of providing once we've left Earth. These factors can be a challenge to navigate here on Earth, not to mention on the surface of another planet. A key factor of a successful crop system, especially in harsh environments like those of Mars and the Moon, is the ability to weigh the advantages and disadvantages of bringing these useful but demanding crops on a future mission. We may have to ask ourselves if the efficacy of plants like hemp is worth bringing the extra water, or if there's a substitute that would be a better suited plant to extreme conditions.
A major issue when considering the survivability of a farm in space would be how to deal with the overabundance of radiation present. As it stands now, there is not a sure answer to exactly how much radiation will be present in the area that Lunar Gateway will be. NASA is working hard on researching this answer, though, by sending out measuring instruments on their future projects in order to judge the exact intensity of radiation from the sun that Lunar Gateway will have to deal with. Actually, the sun will not be the only source of radiation either. Another large source would be the radiation that the moon's surface reflects outward. These two sources, as well as the constant influx of radiation from interstellar space, cause there to be more radiation than humankind has had to deal with before, since the International Space Station is able to take advantage of the Earth's magnetic field protection. No matter the amount of radiation, though, there are a few options for farms protection to consider. One option would be to completely block the sunlight that reaches the Lunar Gateway, thereby shielding the plants from the harm. Like the rest of the ship, the farm could be enclosed in the same metal walls, thereby blocking radiation. The issue with this is that plants need a tiny portion of that radiation provided as nutrients. So artificial sunlight would have to be provided, which is no substitute for the real deal when it comes to nutrients. So a different avenue to pursue would be to use the same glass that is used here on Earth to shield people from X-ray machines, as displayed on the picture on the far left. This glass, commonly known as radiation shielding glass, is made with a high concentration of lead and barium, which ends up filtering the radiation. If testing was done and the amount of radiation is known, the proper consistency of these metals in the glass could be found to allow the perfect amount of radiation through as nutrients for the plants. On top of these avenues, an electromagnetic field generator could also be used to simulate the Earth's protective magnetic field, as displayed on the picture on the right. This would only be efficient to use in tandem with one of the other options, if radiation is too strong for one alone to handle. This farm is all about finding efficient ways to deal with issues. This is an example of some of the technology needed to successfully operate an efficient lunar gateway, or even an off-Earth colony farm.
So to wrap things up, during this presentation we generally discussed what we believe is vital for creating an off-Earth farm. Of course, this is a very complex topic and we couldn't dream of covering everything. However, we covered what we saw as the largest obstacles and solutions to future colonies. After tackling topics like water and low gravity, radiation's impact on the farm, and what plants might serve the colony best, we hope you have a clear idea of what we imagined as a team. And after a fair amount of research, we took the gathered information and came to these sets of interpretations. I hope we were able to do this topic justice and present in an interesting way. Thank you.